Hello friends, Namaskar. I am Vikas Bhardwaj. Welcome to Ansarkari. Today we are taking up a topic that is very crucial from examination perspective. That is evolution of basic structure doctrine. Let's recall it was on 16th October 2015 that NJAC, that is National Judicial Appointment Commission, was quashed by the Supreme Court. That means Supreme Court went on to unpin 99th Amendment Act from the Constitution. But the question is, what was the reason? The reason was that it was violating the basic structure of the Constitution. Let's take another example. That last year, or you can say 2019, government went on to pass quota in public services for economically weaker section among the forward castes. It has been also challenged, or you can say petitioned in the Supreme Court, because it is supposed to be violating basic structure of the constitution, and obviously it is under scrutiny in the present times. So this signifies that basic structure doctrine is having central place in constitutional ideas, and we are going to talk about how it went on to evolve from the beginning. But here it is very important to see that it is structure, basic structure doctrine. So we have to see whether it is mentioned somewhere explicitly in the constitution or not. We can say that it is not mentioned anywhere in the constitution. So it is whether a philosophical idea or it is something concrete. So when we say it is basic structure, then we are obviously talking about that it is a very concrete idea, but then it is based on the foundational values, it is based on the intrinsic core principles on which our constitution is made on. But the question arises, how the idea of basic structure came into picture. Was it discussed and mentioned by the founders of our constitution, or was it something else? It is in this light that we have to see what was happening in the beginning. That means the most important question was that, is Parliament having power to amend the Constitution under Article 368? And if it is having power, it is having power up to what extent? So that brings us to the point that it is basically the amending power of the Constitution, which is with the Parliament, it is being questioned. That means Parliament is having power to amend the constitution in an absolute manner, or whether there are certain kind of restrictions of the same. This is the whole question. So the question is between Parliament versus judiciary. So it is not a kind of power struggle, but you can say the legislative enthusiasm of the Parliament is being questioned by the judiciary in this context. It is being said that under Article 368, Parliament is not having absolute power to amend the constitution. So what we can say basically is that our constitution is both a dynamic document and both a very rigid document. That is why we generally say that our constitution is both rigid and also it is flexible partially, because there are powers given to both center and the state so as to carry on any kind of lawmaking activities under their jurisdiction. But whether those laws are actually in consonance with the values and also articles of the constitution, that will be decided by the judiciary. So it is in this light we can say that the birth of basic structure doctrine took place, or if we say in more brief words, then we can say that it is the procedure to amend the constitution which is lying at the base of basic structure doctrine, because constitution is a document which is reflecting contemporary socio-economic realities. It is not a document which cannot be amended according to the needs and according to the circumstances. If it is so dynamic, then it has to be done under certain light, under certain guiding principles. That is why it is the power of the Parliament to amend the constitution which is at the center of the debate. And more importantly, under article 368, is Parliament having power to amend even the fundamental rights which have been guaranteed in the part 3 of the constitution? That is what you can say. Otherwise also, whenever we talk about amendment of the constitution, there are different kinds of majorities given under Article 368. We have already discussed types of majority in our previous video. Do have a look at it so as to have clarity about type of majorities. But here we can say that it is not just about the power of amendment, it is under what kind of, you can say, jurisdiction these things can be taking place. So the whole game started as early as 1951 when the parliament's power to amend the constitution, especially the fundamental rights, was challenged in the Supreme Court. And it is very interesting to know that till Sajjan Singh case, there was uniform position of the Supreme Court with respect to the fact that what should be the power of the parliament to amend the constitution. That is what we can say, it is the stage one. It was with the Golaknath case that the stage two for the evolution of basic structure doctrine starts, because by Golaknath case, Supreme Court went on to say, yes, Parliament, you can amend any part of the Constitution, but you cannot amend Part 3 of the Constitution, that is fundamental rights. So there was emergence of a, you can say, a new thought process, a new light by which basic structure, idea, theory, or you can say doctrine was emerging. And that was with the third stage, which is coming up with the Keshwanand Bharti case, that basic structure doctrine came into picture and it was concretely put up. Along with this, there was in 1975 Indira Gandhi versus Raj Narayan case, by which Supreme Court went on to say that any kind of electoral malpractices and even free and fair elections, they are also under the scrutiny of the Supreme Court. So that was also added to the basic structure. And the fourth stage in the evolution of basic structure doctrine is reflected by Minimum Wills versus Union of India case, by which you can say that basic structure doctrine went on to encompass the idea of harmony and balance between fundamental rights and that of DPSP, apart from, you can say, judicial review. So judicial review as a concrete and a key instrument in the hands of judiciary in order to interpret the constitution become a foremost tool which have been used in a judicious manner even in the contemporary circumstances. So even after this, you have number of important cases. For example, Quijotto Holohan case. Quijotto Holohan case went on to add the idea of rule of law to the basic structure. So that was also another element. Later on, you have more number of cases coming into picture, for example, Indira Swahini case and so on, which also went on to talk about the same light and went on to focus on why basic structure doctrine is the key to understanding of the constitution. So we cannot say that now Parliament was completely deprived or Parliament's power to amend the constitution was taken away. Somewhere a kind of a justice was done. Somewhere a kind of a balance was restored when we talk about why and how basic structure doctrine came into picture. So it was as early as in 1951 that the power of the parliament to amend the constitution, including that of fundamental rights, was challenged in the court of law. Because it was in the beginning when the issue came that of tenancy structure and also of land ownership issues, that property owners were not happy with the steps taken up by the government. On the other hand, government was also very much committed to carry on agenda with respect to Article 39B and C of the Constitution, that is DPSP. It was trying to follow a socialistic agenda whereby its goal was to prevent the concentration of wealth in the hands of few, and there must be equitable distribution of resources of production among the citizens of India. So we cannot fault the parliament that it was looking forward to some kind of a narrow agenda. However, when the property owners went to the court went on to justify with the grievances, and that is how the government will be coming up with the ninth schedule. It will be coming up with the ninth schedule, that is by the first amendment and the fourth amendment. It will be bringing changes, and large number of acts will be put under ninth schedule which are related with tenancy and land ownership issues, and they were provided immunity from any kind of judicial review. So that was one of the biggest step taken up by the government. Or you can say, on the other hand, Article 31 of the Constitution was amended, which was related with the issue. So now again, in this context, the property owners will again be going to the court and they will be claiming that such kind of step taken up by the government is actually violating their fundamental rights, and the government is actually, or you can say parliament is actually not right in amending the constitution because it is actually violating their fundamental rights under Article 13(2). That is what the owners will be claiming. And interesting point is that Supreme Court is going to reject both the arguments. It will be upholding the right and the power of the parliament to amend the constitution in an unfettered manner. This was happening not only with the Shankari Prasad case versus Union of India, the same happened with the Sajjan Singh versus State of Rajasthan case in 1967. Because in this case also, the validity of the 17th Amendment Act was challenged. What was actually happening here also? By the 17th Amendment Act, you can say that Article 31A was again amended and 44 acts were added to the 9th schedule. So this step was again, taken so that the rights and also uh, resource distribution can take place. However, the judiciary was not supposed to get into the picture because it was not having any power to question what is in the ninth schedule. So that means it was limiting the jurisdiction of High Court. So the main issue was this. However, again here the verdict went on to claim that amendment to this constitution in Article 368 plainly and unambiguously it is meaning that parliament is having all the powers to amend the constitution, whether it is directly mentioned or not. Even if it is not mentioned in the constitution, parliament has the power to assume such powers by which it can amend any part of the constitution. However, judiciary was of the view that in the future, whatever amendment and whatever changes are going to be taking place in the ninth schedule, they may be put under judicial scrutiny. So this was happening by the majority. However, there was a minority view also, which believed that is judiciary by giving such majority pronouncement going on the right way? Is really Parliament having all the powers to amend the Constitution? Then the amendment to the Constitution will become a plaything in the hands of the majority. They can amend the Constitution whenever and however they would like to. Is it really the job Parliament doing for the benefits of the masses, or you can say welfare of the masses? This is what the minority judgment will be talking about. One of the view would also be that is the Parliament having the real powers to amend the constitution? Is it the constituent body? Is it the real ability what the parliament is showing to amend the constitution in all ways? So all these questions were raised, but they were in the minority. So the majority verdict till Sajjan Singh case versus State of Rajasthan was that parliament is having all the you can say ability and all the rights, all the power to you can say in any manner to what we can say is to amend the constitution. So what we can say is that Sajjan Singh case went on to draw the outline of the debate that what are the methods by which one can, or you can say parliament can amend the constitution. And it was in the Golaknath case, you can say the correctness of the Shankari Prasad and Sajjan Singh case will be coming to the fore, because the minority judges judgment was also taken into the view, so that correctness of the previous judgment can also be discussed. That is what was going to happen in the Golaknath versus State of Punjab case. Golaknath case will be a 11 bench judge case, and in that it will be going by the majority of 6 to 5 judges, that no part, or you can say the parliament is having no power to amend part 3 of the constitution. It can amend any part of the constitution, but it is having no power to amend the part 3 of the constitution. That is what it is going to say. But it was talking about, because already about the amendment taking place with the first amendment, fourth amendment and the 17th amendment. These amendments were very much crucial. If court could have overruled all these amendments, then it was knowing that there will be going to be a socio-economic chaos, because then there will be a kind of a anxiety would be there in the society, and the whole social fabric and the social network in the society would be directly impacted. That is why government was asked that these amendments are valid, and in the future you have no right to amend part 3 of the constitution under any ways. And that is why doctrine of prospective overruling was used by the Supreme Court in this context. So what we can say is, by the Golaknath case, for the first time that judgment went into the favor of fundamental rights. It went on to claim that it is the citizens' right, they have the unfettered rights that they must be given in fundamental right. That is why you can say that this case is going to set the stage for evolution of basic structure doctrine. What actually was discussed was that Parliament is given the power by the Constitution to amend the Constitution, and the procedure of the same is mentioned in the Article 368. That is why court went on to claim that it is only talking about the procedure. Otherwise also the Parliament is having regulatory powers to make amendment in the Constitution as and when it is desirable and feasible under Article 248 and also in the entry 97 of the list 1 of the Schedule 7. So what actually the court judgment was saying is that whether it is any amendment to the constitution under procedural requirements of Article 368 or whether it is any other article as a part of the normal legislative process, it is law for the purpose of Article 13(2). That means you can't be spared. Now the government came into action and it went on to bring 24th Amendment Act in 1971. By this Amendment Act, it went on to bring relevant changes to not only Article 13 but also to Article 368, thereby nullifying whatever the court have been saying till now. And the Parliament went on to assume supreme powers or absolute powers with respect to amendment to the Constitution, and it said that nothing will be hampering its power to amend the Constitution, which will again be coming to picture, or you can say it will be again coming to foray with the Keshwanand Bharti case. Because it was by the Keshwanand Bharti case that 25th Amendment Act, 24th Amendment Act and the 29th Amendment Act were challenged in the court of law. Or you can say it was the Keshwanand Bharti case which went on to prove and which went on to make Supreme Court as the arbiter and interpreter of the Constitution. Now, the court in Keshwanand Bharti case went on to overrule what it was talking about in Golaknath case. It went on to say that we were not right in saying that foreign parliament is not having power to amend the constitution. It was saying that even before the 24th Amendment Act, Parliament is having the power to amend the constitution under Article 368. However, Article 368 or any kind of amendment which the Parliament wants to do, it cannot violate basic structure of the constitution. So that is how the theory and the idea of basic structure of the constitution took concrete shape by Keshwanand Bharti case, because it was saying that anything is allowed for the parliament, any amendment parliament can do, and it has all the procedure with its at its disposal, but then basic structure of the constitution cannot be weakened, cannot be destroyed, cannot be changed. And that is why Keshwanand Bharti case is a landmark case with respect to the evolution of constitutional law and evolution of constitutional history. And the story which started in 1951, it continued, and you can say it reached a landmark decision by Keshwanand Bharti case in 1973, because the verdict held that no part of the constitution, including fundamental rights, was beyond parliament's amending power. The basic structure cannot be abrogated even by the constitutional amendment. Now this is the basis even till today. Judiciary can strike down any law if it is violating the basic structure of the constitution. That is very important point to understand. So what we can say is actually that parliament was allowed that up to what extent it can make laws with respect to land ownership and with respect to property, because unlike the previous uh, decisions, here the judiciary went on to claim that up to what extent even right to property could also be curtailed when the government is taking certain important actions. That means Supreme Court went on to claim that the fundamental, or you can say foundational importance is there of the freedom of individual. It cannot be taken away. It must be preserved in all circumstances and all the times. It is not saying that government cannot go for reasonable abridgment, but that reasonable abridgment must follow basic structure doctrine. It must not destroy, it must not alter the foundation of the constitution. And in this judgment only, Supreme Court went on to pronounce that there must be harmonized and balanced relationship between DPSP and also fundamental rights. They both are very important for the functioning of the constitution and for India as a welfare state. That is why fundamental rights were given transitional position. However, everything has to be seen in an harmonized and balanced manner. So the Supreme Court was of the view that the width of the you can say power of amendment could not be enlarged by the parliament by amending the amending power itself, because they believe that Indian constitution is a kind of a social document which is having a basic element and another it is having a circumstantial element. So basic element remains same, but the circumstantial element, it definitely comes into picture whenever there is need for an amendment in the constitution, because it must fulfill the needs and also aspirations of the masses of those present times. That is why the founding fathers of the constitution have given a certain kind of leverage. They have left a certain kind of space. But parliament cannot take up all and whatever it wants to do and say under that pretext. So you can say a new kind of benchmark was set up by the Keshwanand Bharti case, and it was the beginning of a new direction as far as constitutional law and history was concerned, as I already said. But the government was not ready to listen. It wanted to again test the waters. That is why in Indira Gandhi versus Raj Narayan case, basic structure was again reaffirmed. Because government went on to make certain provisions and law by which it went on to say that the election of the president, election of the prime minister, these are beyond the judicial review. That is why Supreme Court went on to strike down clause 4 of Article 329A, because it was deemed to be unconstitutional as it was violating the basic structure of the constitution. So you can say a new league was, a new chain was started and it continued, and thereby taking new heights. So new principles, new ideas, basic structure was following, and it was going to more crystal clarity, unlike in the 1950s and 60s what was happening. At the same time, in 1975, there were other developments also, including the declaration of emergency, or you can say that again Parliament was making efforts by which it was claiming that it is having no limits on its absolute power. It has the right to, you can say, amend the constitution, whether it is fundamental rights and so on, and constitutional changes in the past and the future, they cannot be challenged in the court of law. However, within less than 2 years of the passing of the 42nd Amendment Act, it was challenged under the Minerva Mills versus Union of India case. Minerva Mills was a Sikh industrial firm, but the interesting part is that Nani Phalkiwala, the gentleman, or you can say petitioner, he went on to challenge. He was challenging not the Parliament's fundamental right to property, but it was actually challenging the terms of the Parliament's power to amend the constitution. And it was in this regard, you can say, that Justice Y.V. Chandrachud, he went on to proclaim that power of judicial review and also the limited power which the parliament is having with respect to amendment of the constitution is there with the parliament. And it was, for once and all, it was reaffirmed that basic structure of the constitution cannot be violated under any circumstances. So there were many more cases coming in the future, and they will be, showing more and more clarity, and guidelines will be created with respect to what actually includes the basic structure of the constitution. So beginning with the supremacy of law, rule of law, principles of separation of powers, and the objectives which are specified in the preamble of the constitution, because many judgments, they went on to take context from the preamble also. Judicial review, as we already said, form the keystone of the basic structure doctrine. Article 32 and Article 226, which are linked with the writs, and they are the remedies which are with the masses and origin citizens. They are also very much crucial part of basic structure doctrine. Federalism is definitely an integral part. Secularism is an integral part of the fundamental rights. Similarly, the sovereign, democratic and the republican structure of India, including the freedom and dignity of the individual, form key part of the basic structure. Other key elements include unity and integrity of the nation, principle of equality, and not every feature equality, but the quintessence of equal justice. That means those ideas of social of equal justice which are actually bringing changes in the society. Similarly, essence of other fundamental rights in part 3, concept of social and economic justice, which are leading to a welfare state, and the balance between fundamental rights and directive principles, as we already said, including the parliamentary system of government. There are many more additions including free and fair elections, amending power of the constitution, I mean to say amending power of the parliament, independence of judiciary, effective access to justice. That means you can say NALSA, services provided, legal aid and services provided by the judiciary both at the center and the state level. Powers of the Supreme Court also form part of the basic structure doctrine. Similarly, the idea of welfare state and also legislation seeking to nullify awards made in the exercise of judicial power of the state. There are other important cases, as we already said and discussed, including Indira Gandhi versus Raj Narayan case. Vaman Rao case is another important case. Indira Sohani and S.R. Bommai case also went on to throw light upon what basic structure actually constitutes and how it can be, you can say, promoted further. So this is all about basic structure doctrine, a comprehensive agenda which we have tried to put across in as simple and colloquial words as possible. We are looking forward to your doubts, feedback and any kind of comments which you have. Looking forward to your hard work and success in examination.